Well, no, the whole counter to the Megathops is that humans existed around the same time as these creatures did.
Of course, yeah.
So it is possible, as he said, that the story of them was simply passed down through the generations.
I think I said that.
No, I said that.
It's about old stuff, so Joe had to say it, because he's the old one of the group. So he was around, no?
No,
That's not how that works?
Well, I was not around quite then.
Okay,
no,
I'm sorry. I was trying to give you credit, but okay, Devin.
I appreciate it. Yeah, whichever.
I said it last. Joe might have said it first, but I think I said it last. It doesn't really matter.
It doesn't matter.
She said it, yeah, and that's good.
So we have another theory, which is the unknown descendant of the giant sloth.
Which, in a sense, we kind of already touched
We kind
upon.
of
did,
But
this is probably my favorite.
Yeah.
But there's some details that we haven't gone over as to why this could be a viable theory. There is, and this is something that you will see in a lot of stuff in the animal kingdom, and that is the reduction in scale of animals, because it is based on the changes in the environment. Animals will grow bigger or smaller, which is why we saw things in the early Pliocene start to get bigger, and then as the environment changed, they started, we went from 600-pound beavers to 30-pound beavers or 40-pound beavers. Like they shrunk greatly, and that's based on what the environment was.
Or the populations.
And populations. And so it is the known phenomena, and there is something that you see in the reading. Sometimes you'll see it referred to as island dwarfism or insular dwarfism, and that is where a population is contained in an area, and based on that, their numbers reduce, but the general size of the individuals in that population will reduce. And here's an example. So we all know the mammoth.
Yeah.
Mammoths were humongous creatures.
That's why they were called mammoths, huh?
Exactly. Except there was a population of them that ended up on some islands, and I can't even say I don't know how many generations, but a very small number of generations, their size reduced greatly from creatures that stood 20 plus feet tall to creatures that stood more about 4 to 5 feet tall. And they are very small. And based on environmental changes, that just happened because that's the way they were able to live.
Yeah, because the ones...
the big ones couldn't survive.
Yeah, I was going to say, we probably don't need to dive into this whole evolutionary theory or whatever. But realistically, you're on a small island. It's going to be able to support genetically smaller things because they will have a better chance.
It doesn't have to be a physical island. If your habitat is very specific, that counts as an island as well. And so that's what the theory is.
That's exactly what I was just saying before, is that either a population size will diminish or the actual physical size will diminish.
Yes.
So those are the two options, right? It's either...
Right. Or both.
Or both.
Yeah.
And so at this point, what's happened is that everything is shrunk, and they're in a very specific set of areas. But of course, nobody's mapping that.
Yeah.
The locals are just freaking out and running away. They don't know. So it could be that these critters really do exist, but they're in such small population sizes, and they've diminished enough.
And they don't even necessarily exist today. Maybe they all died out a couple hundred years ago.
Or maybe they are, the size of a sloth.
Maybe they just kept shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, and now they're tiny. Yeah.
And they're the same size as a sloth, and
the conquistadors could have killed them out.
Yeah.
We don't know.
That might have been.
I mean, it's hard to say.
That's the trick with that area. Again,
so that's the thing. There's this Mapinguari out there, and you were over harvesting the peccaries, and he's really ticked about it. But he's a little pipsqueak.
Yeah, he's
he's only about 25 pounds. So,
he's like the equivalent of a house cat, right?
Yeah,
God's perfect killing machine, but somemew tiny.
Yeah, I know.
Yes.
So we just keep picking them up.
Flash from Zootopia.
He's Ant-Man.
I'm going to get. Where did you go?
Yeah, exactly.
Best joke ever on an animated movie. Anywho,
I've not seen that one, but
you need to see that movie.
Okay, really?
I think you can stream it.
Oh.
I know you can stream it.
Okay.
So our last theory here is that indeed the Mapinguari is a totally different actual animal.
Yeah.
So it could be that it is just getting credit for the giant anteater. The giant anteater, you guys have seen photos of the giant anteater. They are weird-looking creatures.
Oh yeah, they're weird, but they're kind of cute in their own funny way.
Yeah, they're like a pug. They're so ugly they can be cute.
Yeah.
Anteater, giant anteaters, for those of you who don't know, they of course are an anteater, so they got the big, long, weird head. But they also are about 6 to 7 feet long, which is the equivalent of about 2 meters. And they weigh in about 70 to 90 pounds, which is 33 to 40 kilograms, which is nowhere. So this puts them standing upright sort of in the same range
6 or 7
size.
feet, yeah. Do they stand up though?
I don't.
They do.
They
do stand
can.
up?
I don't think they do normally, but and I don't know that they smell bad, but they, like we talked about before, they've got really long fur, and it's kind of blackish. I think normally the images I've seen, they're grayish black, right?
It depends on the
Individual?
breed.
Okay.
It's like dogs.
Yeah.
They have different colors, and I think it depends on where they're from, too.
Okay.
You'll get a lot of this happens with almost every species.
Yep.
Where it depends on where they are, what they need to be blending in with.
Yeah,
right?
like corgis. There's different breeds of corgis depending on where in Wales they're from.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, depending on their natural environments.
Well, the corgis
And what
are
color
just
is the furniture in this house? That is the color dog you
Exactly.
get.
great. Yeah.
Well, so the thing to remember, though, is that the giant anteater is a pretty passive creature.
Yeah.
They are not normally an aggressive creature, but they will fight back if they are threatened.
Well, so will any animal.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
very true. They also apparently like to sleep in dense foliage, which could lend credence to it's rushing out of the underbrush at me and it's super scary. That could, but I mean, again, the whole thing of people running away before they see the animal, that could lend, I didn't realize it was an anteater. Anteaters are totally lame and
There
dumb.
is a
They may not
certain-
know.
There's a certain embarrassment factor there too. I ran away from it. You ran away from an anteater, Ted.
Yeah.
Really, that's how wussy you are. Oh no, it was much scarier than
It's
that.
way bigger than that.
Way bigger.
I'm currently looking at a picture of a giant anteater. It is a certain breed. Full disclaimer, I don't know where it is or anything.
That black and gray one.
But yeah, it's black and gray, but the black patch is in a very distinct, smile across its shoulders and through its chest, outlined in white, that I can imagine if that were standing up, I would maybe think that was a giant open mouth staring
It's
at
almost
me.
like the Cheshire Cat.
Yeah, almost, yeah.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
there are patterns like that in their species.
The giant anteater also has really big claws. Now, of course,
do.
those are designed
They're for digging.
dig up ants and get into their colonies.
Yeah,
I would
they're
say,
hills.
most animals that I know of, at least, that have really terrifyingly long claws, use them for digging or climbing. They don't really use them to hurt
Not shredding
things.
the
To disembowel you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's the thing is that, they're not all that aggressive, they're not all that dangerous, except that it turns out that, as we said, you can make them mad and they will come at you. I was reading stories of a couple of hunters a couple of times over the past years that have cornered and antagonized anteaters, giant anteaters, and guess who lost? The hunters.
Yeah.
The anteaters killed them because they are big enough and they have big enough claws that if they do land the lucky strike, you're out, stupid human.
Well, it's like, it kind of makes you wonder why you would do that, not just because of the danger, obviously, but just because...
You're a moron.
You're a moron and you're a jerk, but maybe they just figure they're so passive, we can just mess with them forever. They're never going to lash out at
Well,
us.
one
It's
thing...
not a good assumption.
One thing that I also wonder is the time of the year that most of these interactions are happening in, and if
breeding season.
I was gonna say more like if on accident somebody wandered in between an anteater mama and her babies, they're gonna get probably pretty aggressive.
Or maybe you wander in between like an anteater and a really fat, juicy colony of ants. That'd probably tick them off too.
Probably less. They'd probably
Less so.
be a little more patient to wait. But if you're standing in between pretty much any mama and her babies, you're gonna get something.
This is my direction was a bull and a cow he is always going to try to quote unquote defend his territory.
Right. Well, I don't know how that works with anteaters. I don't know how that works with them, to be honest.
They are such an alien creature to me. They literally could reproduce by osmosis, and I would have no idea.
Yeah, and somebody could tell me that, and I would say, that sounds right.
Yeah, why not? Totally. I mean, look at that fur. It makes sense.
They are so weird looking, and they are. I mean, like I said, they're kind of cute, but they are really freaking weird.
Yeah.
I would say just in general on this story, unless, or do we have more theories?
Well, no, the only thing that I have left on this theory particular is that at one point I think I talked about this, maybe I didn't, was that the legends say that the Mapinguari can't cross water, that it won't cross water, which is kind of screwy since the Amazon is lousy with waterways.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out the giant anteater loves to swim, has no problems with it. So, I mean, these both say that maybe the legend is wrong and the giant anteater isn't the critter. I don't know, but that's all I got.
I would say in general, my feeling on this story is that it's certainly based in truth, whether tenuously based in truth or not. There are enough animals that could be this animal, both in distant past, as in the giant sloth, or modern
Megatherium.
Yeah, or in the modern day with a giant anteater or some heretofore not yet discovered. That's the right use of word. Some now
undiscovered,
as of now undiscovered creature in the Amazon, because there are tons of them, I'm sure still.
Oh yeah.
I just feel that this is kind of one of those things where an indigenous people, or lots of different groups of indigenous peoples, came up with a story to not only talk about why it's important that you only take what you need, but also to scare the kids, and also to explain some things they maybe didn't understand, and that legend just grew and grew and grew. And
so South America's Captain Planet. Got it.
Yeah.
Joe, what's yours?
Oh, probably. Yeah. I mean, all these stories are around. I mean, obviously people tell stories. They like to tell stories, and telling fictional stories is nothing new, probably.
No.
So
no.
I mean, it could be.
Legends have been around for a while. I am currently listening to Dracula, so obviously we all love scary stories.
Yeah. Or, I mean, any of the Homer stories.
Yeah.
And that's really, really early days. So.
Yeah. So I mean, that's what we do, is we tell stories. And there was nothing else
cautionary tales.
And
usually.
Cautionary tales. I mean, we love that kind of a story. I mean, that kind of a story where, somebody gets his rightful comeuppance, that kind of thing, and cautionary tales, they're all kind of in the same vein. So yeah, I could totally see this whole thing just being entirely made up of whole cloth. Maybe it's sort of an amalgam of various critters that have been seen in the jungle.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of just.
Well, that's my idea of we didn't wait around, and it made a bunch of smells, and it made a bunch of ruckus, and you saw bits and pieces, and so you just, in your mind, you glue these three things together, and suddenly.
New theory, giant skunk.
Yeah, I was going to say, there are animals out there besides the giant skunk. There's the stink badger of Southeast Asia. And something else that can project a hideous, horrible smell. Although generally it seems to be really small critters.
The skunk ape?
Yeah, the skunk ape, but it seems like really small creatures kind of need to have that particular defense against predators.
Well, they use it as a defense, yeah.
Oh, yeah, totally. Whereas if you're huge, you don't really need that.
Cares?
But what's to say
that's
that...
just bad grooming.
Well, I was going to say, what's to say that this animal isn't the natural predator of, say, the skunk?
That's right.
And they get sprayed a lot.
Yeah.
Well, they just get sprayed a lot for all the skunks they're killing.
Because they have no sense of
care. They're just killing all of these stink animals.
They're just grabbing all the skunks and
their fur is just so full of the years and years of stink.
Okay, I could be able by that. Yeah.
I want to say that it is just. It is a reason that it's Stinky Ted with his dreads, which Joe started us on.
I'm
in a rhyming mood from earlier tonight, apparently. Yeah. But I don't think the Mapinguari is a current contemporary creature. I will call it a cryptid because I think that it may have been an unknown animal in the past in the scale that it's described at. I don't think that it's the Megatherium or Megafauna like we had in the past. I think it might have been some scaled down version that is no more. That's really what I think. Until Oren and his team come back with better data, because remember they've been collecting samples from people for years. People have been turning in scat samples and hair samples saying, I think that this was the mapinguari, and every time they test it, it turns out to be some other animal, some kind of monkey or an anteater or some other animal that's indigenous to the area. So far, they literally have squat to show. So I really, unfortunately, I don't think that it's a real thing anymore.
Well, you know,
it was.
We've overlooked the theory actually, which is that it's just the local Indians pulling the white man's leg too.
You know, I almost wrote that in here. I'm glad you brought that up, because I put that in there earlier, the fact that, you know, the Europeans showed up and the locals said, oh, by the way, there's this big, farty, smelly, stinky, gross thing. Stay out of there. And that might have been their way to try to protect what they considered a precious item, whether it be gold or plants or pigs or whatever.
Literally just the forest.
Yeah, you really actually just, I could even see like that. It's not even so much that motivation as you have these people showing up, and next thing you know, you get these really credulous people from universities, anthropologist types, who say, please tell us about your folklore traditions. And you're like, what the hell? Okay, let me make something up here.
And we'll pay you to do it.
Yeah, we'll pay you.
I tell good stories.
Yeah, and you must have all sorts of really fascinating, colorful stories, like people like you always do. Okay, let me pull something out of my butt here. Okay, you know, and they make up something just so totally absurd and off the top, and they're like, looking.
And then they go to all the other. Do you know of the mapinguari?
Exactly.
Do you have stories? Oh yeah. We totally have that.
We do, but
except ours smells worse.
Do we have? Yeah. Tell me more about this.
Yeah, but yeah, I understand this guy after he makes this thing up out of whole cloth years ago, and later on he's telling us, and they totally bought it. I don't know why these people think they're so much freaking smarter than we are. Oh my God, they just bought the whole thing, hook, line, and sinker.
Stupid Europeans.
Yeah,
we really are stupid Europeans.
We are.
Yeah.
Okay, well that is the end of the mapinguari cryptid story. Let's give you the important details, which are, if you are the mapinguari and you want to tell us about yourself, you are more than welcome to do that. You can send us an email at thinkingsidewayspodcast@gmail.com. If you are not the mapinguari, but you would also like to communicate with us, you can do so through the same avenue. So story suggestions or comments or whatever it may be, send it to us there. You can get a hold of us all over the internet. So we are on the social media. You can get a hold of us on Facebook through the Facebook page or the Facebook group. You can get a hold of us on Twitter. We are on Instagram, on Reddit. So in order, Facebook page, Facebook group, Instagram, we are Thinking Sideways Podcast. Are Thinking Sideways on Reddit.
Instagram.
And
or Twitter.
And Thinking Sideways on Twitter.
Yeah.
So put that out of order, but you got it. You can rewind. You'll figure it out. Oh. We are on just about every streaming service out there.
Especially Stitcher Premium,
which we'll talk about in a second. So you can find us on Apple Podcasts. You can leave a comment and a rating there. We're on Google Play, which allows you to stream or download from anywhere you are at on your phone or your computer. No, I don't know if Google does your computer. But anyway, we are also on Stitcher, and more importantly, we're on Stitcher Premium. So if you want to be a Stitcher Premium member, go to stitcher.com/thinkingsideways. Use the promo code Sideways when you sign up, and you will get 1 month off of your year subscription if you sign up for the year subscription. Yeah. And that entitles you to ad-free episodes that come out 4 days early, and then we're putting out bonus content
once a month
on Stitcher Premium, so that'll be there as well.
Yeah.
This episode's research, just like every episode's research, will be on our website. That is thinkingsidewayspodcast.com. On the website, you'll also find an episode list where you can find the entire historical list of all topics covered. We have a merch section, so you can find our merchandise. So everything there is on the website. Again, thinkingsidewayspodcast.com. Really easy, really fun to find. With that having been said, something smells in here, so we're going to get out of here.
Ain't me.
And we'll talk to you guys next week.
Bye.
Bigfoot, is that you? I'm not like the others, Bigfoot. I see through the monster coating and the gentle loner inside. I bet you have a wounded raccoon friend that you tenderly nurse back to health while you go, but in the end they shoot you, but you teach us about things.
This episode of Thinking Sideways is not brought to you by Sobbing, the